Daddy, that's
Who's
right.
your daddy?
That's right.
The Bible says you're of your father. Who is it?
The devil.
Listen.
But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter.
What is it?
Neither on the Sabbath day.
Neither on the day of rest.
For then shall be great tribulation.
Then shall be great tribulation.
Such as was not since the beginning of the world.
That's not talking about now.
No.
Great tribulation.
Great tribulation.
As such as it was.
Not since the beginning of the world.
Since the beginning of time.
To this time.
To this time.
No, nor ever shall be.
What?
And except those days should be shortened.
Except those days. What days? The days of the period of tribulation.
There should
be shortened.
There should no flesh be saved.
No flesh won't be delivered.
But for the elect's sake.
In behalf of the elect.
God
will shorten those days in behalf of the elect.
That's right.
Who are the elect? The elect is the church.
That's right.
Is that right, I said?
That's right.
You preachers have said that the church won't go through the Great Tribulation period.
Amen.
Listen at the book.
Down in Matthew 24, now in verse 29.
What is it?
Immediately after the tribulation. After the tribulation.
After the tribulation of those days.
Shall the sun be darkened.
The sun shall be darkened.
And the moon shall not give her light.
The moon won't shine.
And the stars shall fall from heaven.
And the stars shall fall from heaven.
And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Then what?
And then
what?
And then
what?
And then
what?
And then
what happens after the tribulation?
Shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
Here comes Jesus.
Amen.
Here comes Jesus.
Then, that's right.
After
the tribulation.
The tribulation of those days.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
Oh yes, I used to be ignorant. I used to have thought that bless God, the tribulation period is after the coming of Christ, but no.
Oh no.
That was years ago. God opened my understanding.
That's right.
Because what need is the tribulation? Listen, how would the church go through the tribulation period after the coming of Christ?
Right.
And we're going to be with Christ.
Right.
That's right.
In the air.
That's right. That's
tribulation go here on earth.
That's right.
All right.
Amen.
Oh yes, I used to be ignorant. I used to have thought that bless God, the tribulation period is after the coming of Christ, but no.
Oh no.
That was years ago. God opened my understanding.
That's right.
Because what need is the tribulation? Listen, how would the church go through the tribulation period after the coming of Christ?
Right.
And we're going to be with Christ.
Right.
That's right.
In the air.
That's right. That's
tribulation go here on earth.
That's right.
All right.
The video titled "The Rapture Happens After the Great Tribulation, Not Before." In that video, I made mention that the anointed must go through the Great Tribulation. They are not raptured before it. They are raptured after the Great Tribulation. I mean, that's exactly what the Bible is telling us. But yet, most pastors, if not all, well, actually, no, not all. Pastor Geno Jenkins, which I saw one video about him, which I didn't like, so it made me not respect him much. But he even agrees that the rapture happens after it, because he quoted. Well, let me not get into that, but yeah, I might put the link of his video under this video where he basically just proves that the rapture happens after the Great Tribulation, not before it. So in case you don't want to listen to me because I'm a nobody, well, maybe you might listen to Pastor Geno Jenkins since he's a somebody, because I know humans are like that, But yeah, so in that video, I should have also made mention that since there are two groups, like I made mention of in that video, since there are two groups, those who will rule with Christ in heaven and those who will not rule with Christ in heaven, but both hear Christ's voice and follow Christ, and both are sheeps. Like Christ says, he has another sheep that are not of this fold. Since there are two groups, the group that will rule with him in heaven must go through the tribulation. But the group that will not rule with him in heaven do not have to go through the Great Tribulation. But this is the thing. The Great Tribulation is not something that's like concentrated in one area. And so those who do not have to go through the Great Tribulation can run somewhere safely. The devil knows who the elect are. This is my assumption. He knows who the elect are. Why? Because Christ told Peter, and I say this several times, Christ told Peter that the devil has demanded to sift you as wheat. When he says you, he's talking to Peter, but he's not talking only about Peter. He's talking about all the elect. Peter, John. John was spared. His tribulation was in the island of Patmos. If you don't think that's tribulation, that is tribulation. You're isolated from humanity for the rest of your days. You're in prison. Okay. He may have died a natural death, but all the others were martyred. Okay. So they all went through their great tribulation. The devil knows who each of the elect are because he has demanded to have them, to sift them as wheat. So, and this has been granted to him, obviously, because the elect were martyred, right? God granted that request of the devil. That's why Christ is telling Peter, listen, the devil has demanded to sift you as wheat. If this demand from the devil was not granted to him, Christ would not tell Peter that the devil has demanded because it wasn't granted to him. So it makes it's pointless for Christ to tell Peter that, oh, by the way, the devil has demanded to sift you as wheat, but it was not granted to him. No, Christ is saying, no, he has demanded and it has been granted to him. So listen, you will be under heavy persecution, but I have made supplication for you so that your faith does not give out, does not wear out. Isn't that what Christ told his disciples? I have made supplication for you, right? So the devil knows who each of the elect are. So even if the Great Tribulation will not affect all of mankind, which it really will, the devil would put each of the elect through their own tribulation, their own tests and trials that they would each go through. But as for the other sheep, they have a choice to flee that Great Tribulation because they do not have to be persecuted because they're not part of the fold that will go to heaven, right? So there are two groups. So you would think I was contradicting myself when I made a video in this, when I said in this video that the elect must be persecuted. They must go through the Great Tribulation. And then in the very next video about should the Sabbath still be observed, I make mention that Christ tells us that when we see the desolating thing surrounding being where it ought not to be, then let those in quote unquote Judea begin fleeing to the mountains. You would say, wait, Sam, you're contradicting yourself. You're saying the elect must be persecuted, but then you're saying that Christ is saying that they have a choice to flee that persecution. No, Christ is speaking to those who are not part of the elect. They don't have to be persecuted. They can flee. And he's telling them, listen, it's better for you to flee. But for those who are of the elect, no, you can flee. But since the devil knows who you are, you will still go through your tribulation because the devil has demanded to sift you as wheat. You understand what I'm saying now? So I should have made this clear. But I didn't. But at least now you see, again, there are two groups of Christians. Always remember that. This is a fact. This is not something I'm making up. The Bible tells us as much. Christ just literally just said, I have another sheep who are not of this fold. Okay, in the video that I uploaded 17 hours ago, titled Sabbath Should Still Be Observed? Question mark. Based on Matthew chapter 24, verse 20, where Christ says that when the danger comes, or when we perceive the danger about to happen, then let those in Judea begin fleeing to the mountains. Now we know prophecy is twofold, right? So I don't have to get into that. So that applied to the time when the Jerusalem was surrounded by the Romans, and it also applies to the last days. Okay. You can interpret that in many ways. I have my own interpretation of that, but we know prophecy is twofold. And so he's in that he said we should pray that our flight, he said, let those in Judea begin fleeing to the mountains, and we should pray that our flight does not happen on the Sabbath. Now, in the last days, that's also applicable. Let those who hear, whatever Judea means, it could be let those who are followers of Christ, those who serve God, those who are in Judea, quote unquote, let them begin fleeing to the mountains, quote unquote. That might mean go someplace where you are far from the danger. He's saying the bottom line is pray that that you don't have to flee from danger on the Sabbath day. And in that video, I made my case that Christ could not have mean what we think he means, because we already know that we have permission to do work to preserve our lives on the Sabbath. So if we have permission to do work to preserve our lives on the Sabbath, then why do we have to pray that we don't have to do work to preserve our lives on the Sabbath? That was the point I was making in that video. And so I replied to someone who commented under the video. I think he understood what I'm saying, but just in case that video wasn't clear enough, I noticed that what I wrote in reply to him was a lot more clearer than the video itself. So I wanted to read that comment. I write better than I speak. So I wrote, so the brother said, nah, I get you. We can do work on the Sabbath, but only for the sake of life. But this isn't an exception thing. Christ is just showing us human value. It would be ridiculous to not do a good thing, right? Just because it's the Sabbath. And so I don't believe it means something else. I feel like you think it's an exception for good deeds when that's literally normal. But Christ had to break it down for the extremist Jewish leaders. And I agree with that. And he says, but of course, I'm interested to find out, to know what you find out. And I reply, exactly. So now, if it is a normal thing to break the Sabbath in order to save one's life, if it is a normal thing to break the Sabbath in order to save one's life, why then can't we flee from danger on the Sabbath day if it is a normal thing to break the Sabbath day in order to save someone's life? Right? And you would say, no, we can flee from danger on the Sabbath day. Right? You would say, no. Yes, we can flee from danger on the Sabbath day because it's a normal thing to do. In fact, like you said, this should be a normal thing to do because it is for the sake of preserving someone's life. And I said, exactly. So if we are permitted to flee from danger on the Sabbath day, why then does Christ say that we should pray that our fleeing from danger does not happen on the Sabbath day? You see, what's the point of praying for that if we are already permitted to flee? If we are already permitted to flee from danger on the Sabbath day? It would be pointless for Christ to say what he said if he means what we think he means. It would be pointless for him to say that if he really means what we think he means. It will be pointless for Christ to say, pray that your flight from danger does not happen on the Sabbath day, because we are already permitted to flee from danger on the Sabbath day. So why is he telling us, pray that it does not happen on the Sabbath day? And the only thing that I can think of in order to try to validate that the Sabbath should be observed, the only thing I can think of is he is saying that if he really means what we think he means, then the only thing I can think of to support that is God, if we don't pray that our flight does not happen on the Sabbath day, then God might not help us to get to safety on the Sabbath day because we will be breaking his Sabbath. So why would God help us to break his Sabbath to flee from danger? So we should pray that it does not happen on the Sabbath day so that God would help us to get to safety, right? But that will be inaccurate because by whose power did Christ break the Sabbath to perform good deeds? Christ broke the Sabbath to preserve life. But by whose power did he accomplish these things, if not by God's power? All the miracles that Christ performed was by God's power. So God helped Christ to break the Sabbath to perform a good deed, to save lives, to perform miracles. So God will help us on the Sabbath day to break the Sabbath to get to. We do not have to pray specifically for that. Why? We just have to pray, period. God, help us when we are fleeing from danger. Irregardless of if it's on the Sabbath or not, that part is pointless. God, please help us to flee from danger when that time comes. We don't have to say, God, help us if it happens on the Sabbath day. We don't have to say, God, please, may our flight not happen on the Sabbath day. God, may our flight not happen on the Sabbath day. Why? Because, it's on the Sabbath day and it's a day of rest, and we can't perform a good deed on a day of rest. We can't do work on the Sabbath day in order to save our lives. So we are begging you, please don't let our fleeing from danger happen on the Sabbath day. No, you see the illogical reasoning like behind making such a prayer. God would, in a sense, it's almost like, wouldn't God say, why are you praying to me about not fleeing from danger on the Sabbath day when you know that you can flee from danger on the Sabbath day? You can flee from danger on any day because it is for the sake of preserving life. Sabbath day or not, Sabbath day is, whether it's Sabbath day or not, it's pointless. On any day, I give you permission to flee from danger. So why would Christ say, pray that your flight does not happen on the Sabbath day? You see what I'm saying? So it must mean something else. It must mean something else. And that's the point I'm trying to make.